Well, the Blue Moon series really came out of two items. Uh, One was Jim Kelly, the science fiction writer at the New Hampshire Writers Literary Awards, one night asking me, well, when are you going to do your book? And I told him I didn't write books, I wrote poems. And he said, it's about time you started writing some books. And it got me thinking. I had a large number of poems with full moon imagery in it, which up until I started looking, I didn't realize I was doing. And I thought, well, there's possibility there. I did some research and found out that the lunar cycle is 14 months. It's not 12. And as I looked at my poetry, I realized I had a poem for full moon in almost every month of the year. So I began to put it together, and I really only needed to fill 2 months. And I had to wait for those two poems to come. And that's how that book came about. My concept was that a book of poetry itself should be a work of art. I knew Sid cared as much about the quality of the book as he did about the poems that went into a book. So when I approached him, he was amenable. In fact, he came up with these brilliant ideas like French flaps, where the bookmark was enclosed. And he was also willing to go with a smaller book. The other part of that, though, then was I wanted the artwork and the illustrations in the book to be of the same artistic quality. And I was very fortunate in being placed in contact with a young artist named Chad Gowie. I just sent him poems and said nothing. And he came back with these, I still get chills thinking about these gorgeous works of art, which somehow perfectly captured something out of the poems that I sent him. So I was just thrilled. My second book, The Battlefield Guide, came about in an entirely different way. In this case, I grew up in the Amish country of Pennsylvania near Gettysburg. I had spent my high school years being a Civil War nut. We used to go out and camp on the battlefield as kids. And then I went in fact, joined the Army after high school, got a different perspective on war, and literally the whole concept went into remission for decades. And then in the early 90s, I began to start thinking about it again. And I went back to Gettysburg thinking I would write a 20, 30-line poem, and that would be it. I went to the ranger station, and I said, as a kid, I remember this row of monuments out in the middle of nowhere. The ranger says, oh, you must mean the Lost Avenue. I thought, whoa. And he told me how to go back and find it. And so I did, and I started writing, and it's the only time in my experience that the poem began and wouldn't stop. It was as if a faucet had been turned on, and what became 20 lines and became 40 lines, 80 lines, 100, it just kept coming. So I approached Sid again at Hobblebush and said, well, are you interested in a variation of this? And I had already done Gettysburg and Antietam at that point. But I wanted to do Harper's Ferry, and some people call it writer's block. I had run into a wall with Harper's Ferry. It wasn't that I had writer's block, I was writing about it, but the poems were dead. I realized that Harper's Ferry was dealing with the issue of slavery and race. But I didn't know why I couldn't get a handle on it. And then came 2008, and Barack Obama was elected president. And within 2 weeks, Harper's Ferry came rolling out, and it was then I realized what was missing was I did not believe in my soul or heart that this country was capable of coming together enough to elect a black man president. And so that election then broke that logjam, and Harper's Ferry then came out in ways that I totally didn't expect it to come out. So the three together then I was with a complete sort of cycle. One of the things that makes the Battlefield Guide book different, in many ways it's similar to what we did with the Blue Moon series. I believe everything connected with a book, with poetry, music, art, they're all interconnected. And when I wrote those poems, there was music in my head associated with it. And I talked with some local musicians about incorporating music with the poems, and as we read it, both as background, both as separate entities, playing with the musical interaction of words and poetry. So Tim Mowry collected a trio, quartet, depending on when we perform it. He composed and arranged the music that goes with the poetry for Gettysburg and Antietam. We performed it first live at Keene State College. We have a recording of that performance as a CD, which is attached to the book. And I think it makes a wonderful addition. You ask about what else I do as a poet. When I was editing the Worcester Review, we did a number of exchanges with Chinese poets, and I got to know a translator and poet at Nanjing University, Zhang Ziqing, very well. And he would translate my poetry in China. And apparently it was pretty well received. I went back to China in October of last year as a representative of the United States to the city of Hangzhou for their annual prominent figure celebration. And I was commissioned to write a poem about Westlake, which was an incredible experience. So that goes and keeps going again in ways I didn't expect.